Welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Cynthia Pooler, and my guest today is Scott Ritter. And Scott is going to talk about Twitter again, and he's going to talk about Elon Musk purchasing Twitter. So, what's your thoughts, Scott?
Well, I mean, one, it's a very controversial move on the part of Mr. Musk. He's already come under a lot of criticism from people who thought there might be a better way to spend $43 billion. Um, and one has to question his motives to take nearly 50% of his available wealth and put it into a social media platform.
Hmm.
And he claims that it's in defense of free speech. But the fact of the matter is, America doesn't need a billionaire to lecture or teach it about free speech. That's what the Constitution does. And the protectors of the Constitution aren't businessmen, but rather the people through the Congress of the United States. I think, what only Elon Musk can speak to what his genuine motivations are here.
Right.
Is there a game being played here? Is this a business deal that we're not aware of? Has he found a new way to monetize Twitter? Only the future will tell. There are proponents of free speech who have been embittered by Twitter's seemingly clueless banning of people, myself included. But
Yes.
but also, for instance, Susan Collins, the senator from Maine, has come out and said that Musk must unban Donald Trump. And if you believe in free speech, you must allow all voices to be heard, so long as they're not violating the laws of the United States, or in the case of Twitter operating overseas, violating the laws of the lands that Twitter operates in. I think Germany has some very strong laws in place regarding hate speech and allusions to its Nazi past. So I know when I was on Twitter, I often received notifications from Twitter when I criticized the Ukrainian Nazis that my tweets had somehow run afoul of German law. Fortunately,
Wow.
I'm an American who lives in America, and German law doesn't reach here, so they couldn't touch me. But these are some of the obstacles that Musk is going to have to navigate. But at the end of the day, I take deep umbrage over the notion that it takes a billionaire to stand up and defend free speech in America today. Elon Musk is not the solution. In fact, he may turn out to be just as big a problem as the former owners of Twitter. We can't have private persons interpreting what constitutes free speech in America today. We can't.
So, you think only Congress has that right?
The right is, people have the right. We, the people of the United States, have the right. That this is an inalienable right given to us, by the founders, who said, freedom of speech is one of those basic rights of Americans. It's up to Congress to defend these rights.
Hmm.
But Congress is running roughshod. Remember, the First Amendment prohibits Congress from enacting any legislation that would infringe on the free speech of Americans. And the problem with Twitter isn't, people say, well, it's a private company, or it's a company, not part of government. Therefore, it can set rules as it sees fit. Except that Twitter was placed under tremendous pressure by Congress to limit free speech on its platforms. And this, the Supreme Court of the United States says, is simply Congress using other platforms to do that which it is prohibited by law to do. So Congress isn't passing legislation, but Congress is pressuring Twitter to silence voices per the guidelines set forth by Congress. And Congress has singled out Russia Today, as purveyors of disinformation, and anybody who speaks out in defense of Russia, or, for God forbid, write an op-ed or two for for RT is suddenly the personification of evil, a direct threat against the United States and the integrity of the republic, and must be silenced. And therefore, Twitter, you must silence them, and Twitter did compliantly. Musk says he's going to change that. But again, that we need a billionaire to spend $43 billion to do that which Congress can do for free that quick is an embarrassment to America.
That's pretty interesting. So, I don't know when this is going to be final. I guess it has to go through a number of steps before everything is in place. Once everything is in place and you're back and they put you back on Twitter, would that make you happy?
No. I mean, would I go back on Twitter? Yes, it's a interesting platform. I think it's an important platform. It's taken on a degree of importance that I don't think most Americans recognize. There are a lot of very powerful and influential people on Twitter. We saw this with the degree to which Donald Trump used Twitter to push his political beliefs, his personal opinions, and the impact this had. We see President Biden on Twitter. We see all of his advisors, Tony Blinken. Twitter is the preferred way of communicating. Russia communicates via Twitter. The European Union. If you want to get a statement out there today that gets immediate attention, you use Twitter. So I think it's if anybody wants to engage in public discussion, discord, debate, dialogue, etc., participation in Twitter is mandatory, or else your voice will be silenced. So I will, of course, go back on Twitter, but I won't be happy about it because, as I said, it's not a victory for free speech. It simply shows that a billionaire can spend $43 billion and do what he wants to do. This victory would only have occurred if Congress had stepped out and said, you cannot ban people for expressing opinions that are protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Twitter is a de facto state actor, and as such, must abide by the restrictions placed on it when it comes to censorship by the Constitution. This is what Congress should do by law. And if they did this by law, then the Supreme Court, I believe, and it's already indicated, it would sustain this. The Supreme Court says that this issue of Twitter censorship is ripe for a decision by the Supreme Court. That existing Supreme Court decisions about free speech predate the internet, predate the importance of platforms like Twitter, and that there is a need to re-examine free speech in light of this new reality. So Congress should be doing its job, not Elon Musk. It's not Elon Musk's job. It really isn't. His job title is as grand as a person as he thinks he is. It does not include constitutional protector.
So you were saying the last time we spoke about this that there's a possibility that even Elon Musk could be thrown off Twitter?
Well, I mean, if let's say Elon Musk buys it, buys Twitter, and then Congress puts pressure on him in terms of look, some interesting things can happen. Section 230 of a and the exact title of the act is slipping my head, but it basically gives immunity to social media platforms like Twitter, like Facebook, etc., for information or articles that are published on their platform. And so if Congress revoked this, and Donald Trump was a big fan of it, he wanted Congress to revoke the Section 230 protections because that would destroy Twitter. So if Congress believes that Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter empowers voices that Congress would otherwise prefer not to be heard, like
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump,
Mm-hmm.
maybe Scott Ritter, although I'm being very arrogant to think that I'm in the crowd of Donald Trump. But people who have been silenced on Twitter, and Congress takes umbrage at it, they can simply revoke Section 230, the protections, and Musk will have to shut Twitter down, or else face endless lawsuits that will tie him up in court and bankrupt him.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, why would you invest billions of dollars in a company that might bankrupt you? That to me sounds a little far-fetched.
Well, again, it's not far-fetched to say that Section 230 revocation will be the end of social media platform. That's
Mm-hmm.
a statement of fact.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can Google it, find out, it's there. Why Musk thinks he has a better plan and I will tell you this: Musk didn't make billions of dollars by being an idiot. Musk
Right.
didn't make all this money by having a whim and running with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously a plan here that we're not privy to, and I believe Elon Musk, once he does get control of Twitter, will execute this plan. I don't believe that he is throwing away $43 billion in an act of selfless philanthropy. I
Right.
think he has a plan. That plan includes making lots of money because
Right.
that's what he does, and he's using free speech as an advertisement campaign to support whatever it is he's going to do. And this, again, it's a free country, capitalist society. Elon Musk has $43 billion he wants to burn. Go for it. But let's not pretend that this is the solution to America's free speech problem on social media. It's not.
So, when you before the war in Ukraine over the last few months, did you have any problems with Twitter? Did they ever warn you, don't say this or you know, uh,
The only problem I ever had with Twitter prior to this was in a discussion I had about uh, Chelsea Manning, who
uh-huh,
used to be private. I think Bradley Manning. I can't remember the first name, but and I was talking about the issue wasn't Manning. The issue was the protection of U.S. classified information.
mm-hmm,
And my position is that Private Bradley Manning violated U.S. law when Private Bradley Manning um, released classified information to unauthorized persons.
uh-huh,
And the reason why I use Bradley Manning is that Bradley Manning committed the crime. Bradley
mm-hmm,
Manning didn't transition into Chelsea Manning until later. So I believed
okay,
I was being 100% factually accurate when citing legal documents produced by Bradley Manning's team. Then documents contain Bradley Manning's name. I felt that I was being legally accurate by citing that name in association with the offenses. I was accused of what they call dead naming, which apparently is a horrible offense to the transgendered community, where you don't respect their new identity. And I was singled out and given a 7-day suspension by Twitter for violation of this, for abusing people. There's no intent to abuse.
mm-hmm,
Chelsea Manning is Chelsea Manning. I'm not challenging this. I support Chelsea Manning's decisions,
right,
but Chelsea Manning didn't exist when the legal documents that I was referring to were filed. Only Bradley Manning exists. So I wasn't dead naming, but apparently I was. So that was my run-in with Twitter. And again, this is kind of some of the absurdities of Twitter. Because what happens if somebody doesn't agree with transgendered politics?
mm-hmm,
What if somebody believes strictly in that the only designations that are viable are those biological designations you get at birth?
mm-hmm,
Is Twitter the proper arbiter for this? Or is Twitter supposed to be a platform in which these issues can be discussed, where differing points of views can be brought in? So that's, that was an example of Twitter taking sides, where Twitter, for what I believe were political correctness reasons, said, no, we agree with people's concerns that you were dead naming a transgendered person. When in fact, if they just did any research, they realized that, for a very conservative American, I'm one of the strongest supporters of transgendered rights out there. I mean, I believe in everybody should have the same rights. But they singled me out because they don't allow any potential for a deviation from the politically accepted norms and standards that Twitter alone defines. And that's the problem. Twitter's deciding this, not the Constitution, not the Supreme Court. Twitter. Twitter doesn't get to weigh in on free speech. I'm sorry, they just don't. Not when they're given this platform that has assumed the role in American society that it has.
You talk about free speech, and when you turn on the news, the three cable stations, and they talk about the war that's going on, and they give a slanted view, and your view is different. That's against free speech, right?
Well, again, I don't have an inherent right to go on cable news. They're a business. They get to do what they do. It's not a crime. It's not a transgression, but the shame of what they're doing is pretending that they're unbiased, when in fact they are the single most biased sources of information in America today. CNN is not fair and balanced. Fox News is not fair and balanced. MSNBC is not fair and balanced. None of them are. They all have heavy biases, and they all operate under the same pressures, by the way, that are brought to bear on, Twitter, Facebook, et cetera, by Congress when it comes to Russia. You simply can't put out a fact-based analysis that suggests for a moment that Russia might be telling the truth. I mean, I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and their concern was that I was taking a pro-Russian stance. And I said, simply because I suggest that what Russia is saying is the truth, and what the United States is saying might not be the truth. They said yes, and I said, so even though it turns out that what Russia says is the truth, and that the United States has admitted releasing intelligence information that it knows is a lie for the sole purpose of shaping public perception, you still believe that everything about Russia should be questioned, everything about the United States should be accepted. And that caused them to take pause for a moment, but that's the fact. I could come out and take a very strong pro-Ukraine, pro-American position, and I could say some of the most outlandish things, and no one would challenge. No one would challenge. But if I come out and talk about Russia, having done my homework, triple fact checked everything that I say, I'm immediately accused of being a Russian shill because I'm simply saying this actually checks out. It's crazy.
The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, it lasted for just a short period of time, and this seems to be an ongoing tragedy. And I think there's more nuclear weapons involved this time than there was back in 1962. We're in a very dangerous position, and you voicing your opinion on Twitter, and other people voicing their opinion on Twitter, telling what they think is the truth, and Twitter bans them. That's not good.
No, and you're right. I mean, look, back in the Cuban Missile Crisis, we were talking about several hundred nuclear warheads on each side. Today, Russia has over 6,000. We have 5,500. When initial nuclear planning was made back in the 1950s and early 1960s, it was determined that the United States needed 400 nuclear weapons to destroy life on the planet. 400. We have 5,500.
Oh my
So
God.
I think that I think people should wake up to what, when we talk about nuclear war, we're talking about the instantaneous termination of all life on planet Earth, and that's it. So it's not something that should be trivialized. Anytime a politician opens their mouth and suggests that nuclear weapons could be used, they should be run out of office. Anytime a military officer suggests that we could win a nuclear war, they should be terminated immediately. This kind of thinking should not be permitted, not because I'm against free speech, but because nuclear weapons are an existential threat to all of humanity, not just the United States. And you simply, when we prohibit speech that talks about murder, that glorifies the Holocaust and things of that nature. I would say that any speech that suggests there is a legitimate role for the employment of nuclear weapons should be treated in the same vein as Holocaust denial and support of genocide. It should be not permitted, because nuclear weapons have zero utility in the world today beyond the deterrent value that it provides to keep other nuclear armed states from using their weapons. But the best thing isn't to both have weapons. The best thing is for both of us to get rid of the weapons.
So, I'm new to YouTube. I would say there's only a handful of people who are trying to tell the truth. Am I wrong?
One of the things about YouTube is a lot of people have monetized. They use their YouTube platform to generate income, and when they do that, they're prisoners to whatever platform they're using that provides the money. And that platform, many people have been deplatformed for speaking out. So, for instance, if you were heavily involved in pushing what people thought was a pro-Russian point of view, and you used YouTube to raise money through PayPal or Patreon or something of that nature, they could deplatform you. They could stop you from receiving the money. And that's why a lot of people who use YouTube as a means of generating income are very reticent about what they say, because they have to tread a very, very fine line here, or else run the risk of having their means of support removed.
So that's not really free speech then, right?
Free speech doesn't exist. Let's just stop pretending that it does.
Okay.
I mean, I can sit here in my house and I can say anything I want. Yay, I have free speech. But the moment I try to assert my free speech in a manner that influences public discourse, which is the God-given right of every single American, even if you don't believe in God. It's not about what you say at home. It's about your ability to go out and say it to the rest of the country.
Right.
And if you can't do that, there is no free speech. And YouTube, Twitter, Facebook have become a de facto extension of our daily existence. This is why the Supreme Court needs to catch up. This is why simply allowing current Supreme Court case law about free speech that is 30, 40 years old deals with the old way that we communicated, written word, public speaking. It has to be updated to include the internet, social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, because going on those platforms today is as an integral part, or even more so, of American life than speaking before a crowd on commencement day. More Americans communicate with each other using these platforms. Therefore, the communication on these platforms must be protected in the same fashion that all speech is protected, or else we have no free speech.
So when you put the TV on and you see these commentators talk about, I want to say, fabricating what's really going on, and the majority of people buy that line, if something catastrophic happens, would they feel like they've been hoodwinked?
Well, I mean, that's an individual decision. I mean, look at how people acted after the lies of WMD in Iraq were exposed. Um, the ones who were selling the lie, very few came out and said, "All my fault, all on me. I made a huge mistake. I'm sorry." The ones that said, "Oops, I was wrong," most of them said, "I was wrong because the government lied to me, and I should have realized the government was lying to me, and it's the government's fault for lying to me, not my fault for believing the government."
Mm-hmm.
So they sort of absolve themselves of any responsibility as citizens or journalists. And then there's a large number who say, "Nah, nah, 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 nah. Iraq's got WMD anyway." I mean, even today, there's a large percent of Americans who believe there were WMD in Iraq at the time we invaded. They believe the Iraqis took them to Syria. They believe the Iraqis hid them. The Iraqis did something, but they were there. We know they were there because the government told me they were there. So, you know, and on an issue like Ukraine,